A Stillness in the Water by Clint Lowe. Namiko's cheap nurse's dress was pure disguise, her brown legs sleeking from the white cotton part of the fetch to kill me. "We row back to the shore," I demanded, and extracted the oar from her. But she smiled with her almond-eyed Japanese sensuality, stroked her neck, and retook the oar. "Quinn, it's your duty. Just don't get killed." A better man and a better spy wouldn't haul out into the Pacific 50 yards from the coast, but would procure information over drinks at the bar where he approached the lady. But like I said, a better man, a better spy. The warm night swept over the tranquil sea as we sat in the rowboat, each with an oar tucked on our lap. The mountains stretched out into the dusk, and a million stars spied on us from above. Namiko stood up, flipped her oar aside. "Imitate me." She kicked off her heels, glanced toward the water dancing in the moonlight, then began to unbutton her shirt. "Oh, hell," I said. "Are you nuts? Strip." She eyed my black suit and black tie. "That's no attire for swimming." "Swimming, right." I straightened my tie. "You said you had something to share, not I said something to show." "What? Japanese angelfish?" "Rarer," she said. I glanced at the water and wondered if she knew I was a spy hunting intel on the Japanese military secret weapon. "You don't plan to drown me?" She picked the oar and spanked it into the water, spraying my suit and then flipped it onto her shoulder. "Yes, I'm going to spank you with this and then hold your head underwater. I thought this was a date." "Don't play stupid. We both know who we are. Quit the chicanery and lose those pants." And then she spanked my ass with the oar. While I was in surprise, she speared me into the hull, rocking the little boat and whipped my pants to my knees. She tore my shirt open, buttons popping like gunfire. "Lunatic spy!" I grabbed a fistful of her shirt, and its buttons exploded. She kneeled over me and scraped up a small stray sinker and flew it in her hand, humming. "Zzz. You making a bee?" "A plane, dummy," she said. Then, boom, she bombed the sinker onto my bare stomach. "And I thought Americans fought hard." I shook my head, rising. Crazy Japanese. A cool and quiet stillness came over her. She peered over the blue. "You ready?" "For what?" She smiled like a nurse would at one destined to die of war wounds, then leaned over the boat and circled her hand in the water. A small glow emanated from the seas, and then a light flashed out like a lightning circle the size of a football field, causing a small wave to spread out from the boat. It was some electrocution device. She was going to shove me overboard and fry me red like a Sunday lobster. "So that's your weapon?" I said. "Partly." She took a rope tied to the bow and leaned over the rail. A chill rose from the water and entered me. Sleeping beneath was a ship. Namiko had tied the rope to a part of the ship that was surfaced, waves licking the metal. "When on earth did that get here?" I asked. "Tomorrow." She dropped her skirt to her ankles. "Hope you have strong lungs." We stepped from our boat and onto the wrecked ship. A haunting presence whispered I didn't belong here. I was disturbing the ship's peace. I stripped to my jocks. With careful steps, we navigated the buckled hull. We climbed over rails and jutting pieces of metal that chilled my feet. "I know I've only been posted here for 2 months," I said, "but how come I've never seen this thing anyway?" "You're the first to see it." I stood near what appeared to be the remains of a turret. "I doubt that." I glanced my eyes over the moonlit water and took in its size. "It's huge." "It's a battleship." "I can't recall any." She put her hand over my mouth as we stood alone in the vast blue, waves tickling our waists. "I'll show you. Follow me and breathe deep. Start expanding those lungs." Beside the turret, perhaps a hatch, then stood on the edge. Did she mean dive? I can't hold my breath for long. "It's fine. There's an air pocket." She disappeared into the dark blue. I held my breath and torpedoed after her. Blackness took me. Then I saw a flash of her arm below me and a subtle glow. I groped for a ladder, but there was none. We weren't descending through a hatch. It was a hole. I pushed down, grabbing pieces of pipe and metal until I was beside her. The glowing light that flashed from her hand now glowed around her like a lantern. We could have dropped to the 3rd or 4th deck, but it was too dark to discern. I sought the air hole she had promised, but she grabbed me and pulled me into her light. She was going to drown me. I readied to punch her stomach, but she jabbed at my throat. I gasped a big breath of ocean water. Except it was oxygen. I took another breath and another, while Namiko laughed. Decks inside a sunken water-filled battleship, and we were breathing. Japan's weapon? I had no idea what it was, and, though it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen or experienced, I failed to see how it could help them win this war. Any war, unless they were invading sharks and octopuses. Namiko squeezed open a buckled door in front of us, revealing a twisted black hole. She took my arm and led me through. We weaved through a passage in our blue bubble surrounded by total darkness. The passage twisted. Pipes jutted out. We squeezed through crevices, over and past walls that were scorched and broken. Namiko led me through a battered doorway, opening another world of blackness as the passage walls vanished. A galley? A boiler room? Time passed, and we just floated and breathed amidst the bubbles and a few tiny creaks from the ship. Just as I felt at ease, a hand ran along my hair, and it wasn't Namiko's. A man's ghostly face drifted above me. The stillness in his eyes shook me. The whites surrounding the brown, wide open and unblinking as he floated, mouth open but in no need of our air bubble. He was dead. Then an arm strayed past our bubble of light, and it was no more than a lad. His eyes almost shut, but I could make out the pupils and the stillness. Then more men drifted past until a whole crew floated around us, and if men were ever going to walk on the moon, I figured this is how it would look. Namiko held my arm. Getting my attention, she swayed her free hand in a giant circle, and out from the bubble shot another ball of light. Fire and explosions erupted around us. It wasn't real fire or real explosions, for there was no burning heat or noise or impact or shockwave. It was a vision. Namiko looked me dead in the eye until the flames burnt out, leaving blackness again, and then it was just us and the bodies, surrounded by water. We stayed for a few moments, but it felt like an eternity, another lifetime. Perhaps it was for the crew gliding around us. Suddenly the vision began to blur and sway in shockwaves. My body became loose as if I was out of myself, dreaming but not in the dream. I was going to pass into blackness, perhaps die with these men. I wasn't sure right then that I wasn't already dead. Namiko took my limp body and navigated back to the surface, restoring me to the world we came from. Warm air entered my lungs, reviving my consciousness. I wondered if that ship of lost men was real or if I'd just woken from a dream. The answer soon came, because now standing before me out of the water was the top half of the ship. It was rent apart, its twisted foremast leaning forward like a dead man sitting against the wall with his head drooped. "You are breaking from the future," Namiko said, taking the silence. I stared at the ship before me. Eventually, when did the top half of the ship... "I didn't want to reveal it before," Namiko said. "I wanted you to see the crew first. Who are these people? When did this happen?" "I'm the secret Japanese weapon you seek." "What?" "The weapon." "Of course. They forced me to do this, to fight the war. I show them the results of their moves in advance." She shook her head. "Not anymore. I'm done with fighting and death." "I don't understand." She set her eyes on mine, my anxious eyes on hers. It was stillness again, just us here in the moment. And then she took the moment. "I can bring myself and anyone with me into the future." "You see the future?" "No. I can enter the future up to one day. That was the future. There's going to be attack tomorrow before 8 a.m. No formal warning. Nothing. We're standing on the USS Arizona. I turned upon Pearl Harbor, not sure to believe it, but I'd seen the bodies, felt them. And then she took my hand. I'll show you. We boarded back into our rowboat. Namiko raised her hands and motioned a giant circle. Then followed the flash, and it was morning. A bright sun glistened over the water. All was still, but a sound of distant humming, like giant bees. They drew my gaze toward the sky. In the far distance flew tiny black dots. I gripped Namiko's wrist and whispered, "They're not bees."